Those scenes are as vivid today as they were exactly 1 year ago, November 15th, 1989. The tornado that raced through Huntsville was on the ground little more than 10 minutes. But in that brief breath of time, there were millions in damages and thousands of lives forever touched. A year later, most of the twisted metal is gone. But for the people who work and shop and live in this area, the memories are not. In the next 30 minutes, we'll go back to November 15th, 1989, and look ahead to where we are 1 year later.
This is a WAFF 48 News special report. November 15th, a day of destruction, a year of recovery.
Airport Road, without question, the hardest hit by the tornado. Without warning, much of this area was reduced to rubble. This is where we begin. News 48's Phil Schmidt walks us through the events of November 15th.
4:30 that Wednesday afternoon looked like midnight. In seconds, rush hour drivers around Airport Road pitched and spun without warning.
I seen it, so I pulled in the parking lot, and as I did, cars were lifting up off Airport Road and flipping like this. I got down and laid down on the front floorboard of my truck, took every piece of glass out of it.
Greg Talley captured the funnel cloud on his home video camera. Along Airport Road, rescuers searched through rubble. Apartments, shopping centers, and Holy Spirit Catholic School lay in tangled ruins. People trapped alive.
We need a paramedic up here! Paramedic!
A mile east, 37 children huddled in Jones Valley Elementary School, where the second story blew off and the ceiling caved in.
If their children are left, they're underneath the stairwell in that debris.
We got as many kids as we could out, and we had to dig some of them out and got them in the hallways and stuff, but when it picks you up, takes you down the hallway, dragging you and stuff falling on you, ain't no farther you can go.
From Huntsville to Jackson County, 22 people died. About 460 were injured, and no one could imagine the extent of the destruction.
We now know that the destruction totaled well over $100 million, but there's no price tag for human lives. With so many people injured, medical workers were put to the test that day. As News 48's West Terrain reports, they too will long remember.
It seemed as though the night would never end for emergency crews transporting the injured to local hospitals.
Well, we transported over 260 people, the best we could figure. And we were out there in some form of another for about 3 days. Well, when you see something of that magnitude, and you know what you're going to find in terms of injuries and fatalities and all, you know it's going to be a tough night.
HIMSI Director John Kinzer says he's pleased with how medical technicians responded to the challenge.
I think the performance was great. I don't think we could have done much better.
Get around behind it.
Next time there will be a next time, and we have something this magnitude, we're going to try to get a much quicker handle on its width, its length, and the full scope of it.
Kinzer says it's important to thank emergency crews from surrounding counties that came to help. Their services were invaluable.
The road to recovery means more than just healing the physical wounds. Many local businesses had to rebuild from the ground up. As News 48's Cindy Davis reports, one local merchant knows that experience all too well.
Wayne Elmore waits on his customers on this sunny day without fear of bad weather. But when clouds hover and harsh winds blow, he remembers last year's killer tornado and knows what could happen.
I was waiting on a customer on the front, and it sounded like maybe an airplane lighting in the middle of Whitesburg Drive. I got the lady out of the car and went in the building, and my feet came off the floor about the time I sat down. And we was all just thrown out of the building, out into the roads and around the parking lot.
November 15th marked Elmore's second confrontation with a tornado. In 1974, he lost an auto parts store on Lehman Ferry Road. Today, after rebuilding his business for the second time, he looks to the future. He has a new shop and a convenience store.
I got friends along with customers, and they all was very caring, and they supported in all the rebuilding. And we reopened in March. Our business has been twice as good as it ever has been.
Reds Golf, now BP, is just one of the many incredible stories from November 15th. When we come back, we'll go to Holy Spirit School, where not even a tornado could stop the learning. Holy Spirit School, little remained of the building. But as we soon found out, there was more to this school than just a building. News 48's Drew Hadwall shows us the comeback of Holy Spirit.
Holy Spirit School following the tornado. More than 250 school children left without a school. Parents and administrators remained undaunted. Within 2 weeks, classes resumed at the Huntington Center.
You will be very afraid, and that's very normal.
Holy Spirit today. The children are back, and the mood joyous.
Over in Huntington Center, it was a different feeling. It wasn't a school. And I think spiritually the kids, we have our crucifixes back up on the wall, and we get to go to church once a week, and stuff that we had lacked over in Huntington Center because of the facilities, we get to do here.
But the work is far from over. In another year, this door won't step outside. Instead, there will be a brand new auditorium and a cafeteria. The school should be complete by early fall of next year.
Not far from Holy Spirit is the Waterford Square apartment complex. It, too, was in the tornado's direct path. Many residents here lost everything. But News 48's West Terrain reports one family, like so many others, has risen up to rebuild their lives.
Bud and Mary McLaughlin pull into the driveway of their new home. They used to live at Waterford Square apartment complex. They lost everything.
We just managed a couple, maybe 3 paper bags full of stuff that was salvageable, but it's a weird feeling, you know, knowing that, you know, everything you had, you know, like that is gone.
But the McLaughlins were able to bounce back in about 4 weeks.
I guess you could say there was a silver lining in that funnel cloud. You know, we were very fortunate that we had, well, for one thing, that we had renter's insurance. Because that enabled us to, you know, get the house and get back on our feet.
The McLaughlins could have been buried in the rubble of what was once Waterford Square apartment. Fortunately, they were not home when the storm hit.
Very fortunate, because it could have been so much worse. Had I been home, I wouldn't have known what to do.
A wrinkled picture sitting above the fireplace silently reminds them of what happened 1 year ago. Mary and Bud often thumbed through their tornado scrapbook, reading letters, gazing at photographs, and reliving the experience. Remembering is sometimes painful.
We had so many nice people that did so many nice things for us. I just sit and look back to that and remember, you know, our old house and our old neighbors. It's hard to talk about it sometimes, too.
Mary, Bud, and little Shane made it through the tornado physically unharmed. Many stories don't have a happy ending, but this one does.
Another story from the November tornado has a bittersweet ending. News 48's Cindy Davis introduces us to a man whose heroics saved lives, but threatened his own.
Billy Dupree faced death twice this year. He had been painting at Jones Valley Elementary School when the tornado struck. Dupree survived and then rescued many children buried under the debris.
People just started screaming, and then we started going towards them, getting them, you know, following their cries, because you couldn't see nothing. And we told them to stay where it was because we was afraid of his live wires and they might get electrocuted, you know. Most people say you're a hero, but, you know, I know what I first thought. I first panicked, you know, I thought about running. But, you know, after a few minutes, you come to your senses and you say, hey, I can't do that. I got to help the rest of them.
After that night, Dupree's leukemia was reactivated. Doctors say the trauma of the tornado could have sparked the disease that had been in remission. The 31-year-old man had a bone marrow transplant in February, but doctors still could only give him a 10% chance to live. Dupree fought leukemia and beat the odds.
Before, I didn't used to think so much about the value of life, but now I realize the value of it, you know, what it means to be at the point of death and, you know, had to live. So, no, I think in the long run it made me a better individual.
Behind me, the groundwork of the new Jones Valley Elementary. When the tornado hit, the school was demolished. Miraculously, 37 students escaped the rubble. Was it luck or good preparation? News 48's West Terrain looks at what the students and school leaders are doing to make sure the answer in the future is preparation.
May I have your attention, Challenger and Jones Valley? Please go to your areas of safety.
Fifth grader Alan Gamble says he's learned an important lesson from last year's tornado.
I've learned that whenever there's a tornado watch or warning out, always get in shelter.
1 year ago at this hour, he had just been freed from tornado-ravaged Jones Valley. Alan Gamble takes this tornado drill seriously.
I think you should take them seriously because if there ever is a tornado, you can be prepared for it.
School leaders realize practice makes perfect.
We have about 1,700 children in this school in Jones Valley, Challenger Elementary and Middle, and we got in our positions in approximately 2 minutes.
We have done a lot of teaching since the tornado.
Teaching to make sure students know where to go and what to do in a real emergency. School administrators update their emergency response plan.
That covers the system as a whole, from the superintendent down to the maintenance folks.
Koski says they've purchased thousands of dollars worth of emergency equipment.
Generators, lights, raincoats, blankets, first aid kits. We've purchased, I believe, 60 weather radios.
The school system builds a new Jones Valley much larger than the one before. It's scheduled to open next year. School leaders realize they cannot build a tornado-proof structure, but they believe this school will be one of the safest buildings within the system.
And that is to build the first floor into the side of the mountain. The second floor is built at ground level, which gives you some advantage.
A close examination of last year's tragedy can help all of us be better prepared in the future. News 48's John Malone tells us what we've learned and what you need to know.
The time to determine what you and your family must do during an emergency is now. The events of last year emphasize the importance of following the safety tips we've had for years. 2/3 of all fatalities were in cars or a mobile home. You're safer lying down in a ditch. If you're in your home, move to a basement or crawl space. Cooler chests and bank vaults are quite sturdy. A small interior closet or bathroom or even under a workbench is next best. One youngster reported hiding in a closet with a coat over his head. It turned out to be the only part of his home still standing. And above all else, be aware. A watch means conditions are favorable for the development of severe weather, while a warning means it actually exists, and you must take immediate cover. Knowing what to do now could save your life later.
In a tornado-prone area such as ours, severe weather service must be state-of-the-art. When we return, a look at progress toward those improvements. During disasters like last year's tornado, this room at the Emergency Management Office becomes a command post. From here, vital information is forwarded to police, fire, and rescue units on the scene. Communications is the key. But as News 48's Phil Schmidt reports, electronic gadgets that we use at home are crowding the airwaves.
Good morning. Is John Harkins in?
No, he's not. May I take a message?
Cellular phones, baby monitors, garage door openers, television, radio, even the drive-through window at McDonald's signal travels around the neighborhood.
Have me take your order.
Now give me 2 cheeseburgers, 1 Coke, and 1 orange drink.
Police, firefighters, sheriff deputies, and ambulance drivers each have 2 channels to use. Captain Philip Arnold hears Tennessee River barge messages interrupting police radio. The night of the tornado, communications log-jammed.
Anytime that you have a major disaster like that, you have communication saturation, and it's inevitable it's going to happen.
The current emergency communication channels make it nearly impossible for different agencies to talk with one another. Huntsville plans to correct that in a few years. Talking on an 800 megahertz frequency, an operator could put all agencies responding to one scene on the same channel.
To where they are not listening to all of the conversation that is taking place, but only that which they need to listen to.
Switching to 800 megahertz in a few years will also keep people from eavesdropping on police business.
Local emergency officials are also looking to the future for another switch, Doppler radar.
The weather forecast for the Huntsville area, mostly cloudy today with showers and thunderstorms.
The radar currently used in Huntsville shows rain clouds as green blotches. Operators can see where rain falls and how much, but they cannot see on this radar strong winds that come with storms. They can only make an educated guess where a tornado might be forming.
Southwest winds 10 to 15 miles an hour, except strong and gusty near thunderstorms.
The state, Madison County, and the airport authority pooled money to purchase a $325,000 Doppler radar retrofit. The upgrade will allow forecasters to see in contrasting colors which way raindrops move. If they start whirling in what's called cyclonic flow, operators can detect the beginnings of a tornado.
I think it will enhance our position here. I think it will enhance our radar, and anything that will enhance our job, why, I'm definitely for it.
Enterprise Electronics builds Doppler units in South Alabama. Company sales manager Ted Simmons says once an order is placed, it'll be at least 6 months before the system can be installed. Then our local National Weather Service forecasters will have a clearer picture of storms in the Tennessee Valley and when we need to take cover. Up next, we go back to Airport Road, where a year later, progress has replaced destruction. Airport Road, November 15th, 1990. Many of the scars of a year ago still remain, but as News 48's Drew Hadwell reports, they won't be here for long.
Airport Road, a year later, alive with activity. The debris, long gone, is replaced with new businesses. Construction crews are hard at work rebuilding the Westbury Shopping Center and the Waterford Square apartments. Much work remains, but the district is definitely on the rebound.
Everybody has been real gutsy and getting their business back up and going, and I know it's been a hard road to hoe for quite a few of us, but we're back on track now and just really looking forward to the future.
Thomas lost his pharmacy when the twister snuffed out the small shopping center at the corner of Whitesburg and Airport. He's back in business, and his spirits run high.
It's really, really nice to be back and be able to fully serve the people that we want to.
People here will never forget November 15th, 1989, but their spirit and determination point to the future.
This busy intersection pays tribute to how far we've come in just 1 year's time. We've learned to respect what we cannot stop. We've also learned that we can be better prepared. But perhaps most importantly, we've learned that no matter what the circumstance, we can rebuild. And that's a long way indeed when you consider what Airport Road looked like 1 year ago. I'm Bob Barron. Thank you for joining us, and good night.
I seen it, so I pulled in the parking lot, and as I did, cars were lifting up off Airport Road and flipping like this. But when it picks you up, takes you down the hallway, dragging you and stuff falling on you, ain't no farther you can go.
It sounded like maybe an airplane landing in the middle of Whitesburg Drive.
We had so many nice people that did so many nice things for us. It's hard to talk about it sometimes, too.
Before I didn't used to think too much about the value of life, but now I realize the value of it, you know, what it means to be at the point of death and, and to live.
We're back on track now and just really looking forward to the future.